Today, we're diving into a really deep psychological puzzle, one that came to define a man's final days. We're calling it the will against the self.
So, if you remember from our last explainer, we left Dr. Julius Hertzfeld, a therapist who'd spent his whole life listening to others, suddenly forced to face the silence of his own final diagnosis.
And there's this profound, almost cruel irony to it, right? The very man who guided so many people back to health discovered that his own body had become this rebellious subject, just refusing to obey his commands. So what do you do when your future just shrinks? Well, you look to your past, and that's exactly what Julius did. He started this quiet audit of his life's work, asking himself, did I actually make a difference? Do I have any proof?
And out of that search, one name, one particular case, what he always considered a failure, surfaced with this unsettling clarity: Philip Slate. Philip was the patient who had asked this single, haunting question. And it's the kind of question that gets under your skin and just stays there. It had echoed in Julius's mind for decades, and now, at the end of his life, it was demanding an answer.
Okay, so to really get what's going on here, we have to look at two different moments in time. We're going to start with the original therapy sessions back in 1980, and then we're going to jump forward 20 years to Julius's present day. So let's meet the man himself. This is Philip Slate, circa 1980. On paper, he has it all. He's 26, sharp, successful chemist, good-looking. But inside, a total emotional desert. And get this, he didn't come to therapy to feel good. He came because he was a scientist facing a problem he couldn't solve on his own.
He laid out his problem with the cold precision you'd expect from a chemist. He basically said, I feel like a passenger in my own body, driven by a force I don't recognize and I certainly do not want.
This one story he told Julius just captures his internal war perfectly. He gets to Chicago for a conference, and immediately, almost compulsively, he starts calling every woman he knows to try and arrange a hookup. And when every single one of them says no, his conscious mind, the part of him that just wants peace and quiet, is flooded with relief. His actions and his true desires were in a head-on collision.
I mean, how do you even begin to make sense of that? Well, Julius turned to the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, who had pretty much nailed this exact human paradox centuries earlier. You are free to act on your desires, sure, but you are not free to choose the desires themselves.
Schopenhauer called this relentless force the will to life. I want you to think of it as this deep, primal, totally irrational engine that's inside all of us. It's just pushing us to survive, to reproduce, to strive for more, and it could not care less about our personal happiness or peace of mind.
So Schopenhauer saw it as this epic battle between the intellect, which he called the calm, rational rider, and the will, which is the powerful, blind horse it's trying to steer. For Philip, that horse was in a full-blown gallop, dragging the poor rider behind it.
All right, so 20 years go by. For Julius, the whole experience with Philip just became this distant, unresolved memory, a loose end.
So, Julius, now facing his own death, finally gets up the courage to call his old patient, and what he finds out is just staggering. Philip Slate, the emotionally barren man, tells him, I'm a therapist now. The patient had become the healer.
This news just completely floors Julius. I mean, it raises this profound question that gets right to the very heart of his profession. How could a person who seemed so incapable of real human connection possibly guide other people toward it?
It just didn't make sense. Julius remembered the stark numbers. In just 1 year, Philip had slept with 90 different women. It was this desperate, frantic search for something.
But here's the thing. All that activity, all that frantic motion, it never once seemed to touch his inner self. It was motion without meaning, connection without any real contact. His soul was completely insulated from the acts of his body.
And this brings us to the crucial question. So what happened to Philip? Did Julius's therapy actually work, just with a massive delay? Or did Philip just find a more socially acceptable way to channel that same relentless driving will? Maybe a way to dominate, not through sex, but through intellect and control?
And once again, Schopenhauer gives us a way to think about this. He basically argued that we can never really conquer the will. The only path to real peace is to deny it, to step away from all the striving, which, let's be honest, is something very few of us ever manage to do.
And this is how the will hides in plain sight, you see.
Most of us just find these clever disguises for it. That same raw, striving energy can be channeled into things we see as positive: ambition, success, even love, or the desire to heal others. But underneath it all, it's the same blind horse, just galloping forward.
And this is where the philosophy gets a little uncomfortable, right? It forces us to look in the mirror, to really question our own motivations. Are our great ambitions and passions truly our own choice? Or are they just sophisticated masks for that same primal will to life? So this all sets the stage for a meeting between these two men, each one trapped in his own way. Philip, who was once enslaved by desire, and Julius, who is now enslaved by time.
And their reunion promises to explore something way deeper than just one man's story. It calls into question the very idea of change, of healing, and it asks this fundamental question: is a true cure for the human condition even possible?